Hello YouTube, One Lazy Trucker here. Uh, Tonight I'd like to talk about grizzly bears and what we can do about preserving them for the future. But first, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any of the future episodes. Now, the grizzly bear population in Yellowstone and the surrounding area of Montana and Wyoming have grown quite a bit over the last couple of decades. And, there was even talk of there being a hunting season for grizzly bears in Montana and Idaho. That got nixed. They do eat backpackers once in a while and other tourists. And I know a couple of people personally who have been attacked by grizzlies and other bears, and it's not very pretty, the damage they do, but they are wonderful animals, just amazing hunters. Huge animals, though. If you ever get a chance to see one up close, you won't believe how big they are. And they can do a lot of damage. A lot of the females are 400 plus pounds. A lot of the males are pushing 800 pounds. But I think that part of the solution to the survival of the grizzly bear would be in areas like Yellowstone that are really showing huge population growth. If we could take some of those bears and transplant those bears to parts of their former range. Now, there has been some expansion of the grizzly bear population from Montana and Wyoming over into Idaho and even over into eastern Washington. Traditionally, the grizzly bear ranged in the lower 48 states from the plains all the way to the west coast, and from clear up in Canada and Alaska all the way down into Mexico. There hasn't been a grizzly bear in California since it's been 100 years. It was in the 1920s, the early 1920s, when they managed to kill off the last 2 or 3 bears that were there. And then they felt so bad about it, they put the bear on their flag 29 years later. Or they adopted it as the official state animal 29 years later, even though it's extinct there now. But it's been on the flag. And so if we took these extra bears that are becoming overly populated in places like Yellowstone and the surrounding area, and transplanted those to areas of California like Sequoia National, like Yosemite, into their park areas first, just like they did at Yellowstone. Preserve them there first, and that will help grow and sustain the population of the grizzly bears in the lower 48. And if they needed an expanded gene pool, they could pull a few from Alaska without hurting it. But there used to be grizzlies in Arizona. I believe the last one there was killed in 1936, so almost 100 years ago since they've seen them there. I believe 79 was the last time they saw a grizzly bear in Colorado. So I'm sure that those states would be more than willing to reintroduce what was a native animal there. And they've reintroduced wolves to Yellowstone, and they've made a tremendous recovery there, and they're all throughout Montana now, and um, those could also be, instead of hunted, they could be trapped and transplanted back to California, Colorado. There were no grizzly bears on the East Coast because that just wasn't their natural range. But there used to be wolves back there, so we could transplant some of those wolves back there. Now, the wolves in Montana are not the same wolves that were hunted to extinction 100 years ago. They are actually a much larger Canadian timber wolf. So you'll end up with a bigger wolf than what was historically there, but you know, hey, you can't have everything, you know. Our ancestors killed off all the wolves as best they could, and now we're trying to preserve that. And I think that, you know, being part of being a good Christian is being a good steward of the resources. So I think relocating extra grizzly bears where there are extra grizzly bears to their former regions and their former territories would be a good thing. I think relocating the excess populations of wolves back to places like New York and back east would also be a good thing. So I think that's how we can help these endangered animals, is to continue to expand their ranges and not just let them naturally flow out of the areas, but to help them along a little bit. You know, I'm sure that California could use those grizzly bears. They're great. The tourists go to Yellowstone to see them. You know, it's almost so you could populate Yosemite and Sequoia National Forest with grizzly bears, and people would go there just to see the grizzly bears, just like they go to see grizzly bears in Yellowstone. They were top predators when they were in those regions, so they will help with the wildlife situation, keeping it balanced. But yeah, I think that instead of having a hunting season, since people are so appalled by that, for these extra grizzly bears, and I say even the nuisance bears, the bears that have become, you know, accustomed to people, or garbage dependent bears, or bears that are breaking into cabins and whatnot. You know, rather than euthanize those animals, we should capture them like they do when they euthanize them, but ship them to the other states that used to be in the native territory ranges of these animals, like Arizona, Colorado, California, and help reestablish those populations of grizzly bears and wolves back into their native territories, so that the only place you hear about grizzlies in the lower 48 states is Yellowstone. And I don't think that should be. I think, you know, that they should be spread back to their normal range, their native ranges, where they were hunted to extinction. And I don't think it should be kind of a slow flow like it has been from Montana and Wyoming into Idaho and then into eastern Washington. I think that'll just take too long. And, you know, these animals deserve a better chance. And, you know, people are appalled by hunting them, even though there seems to be an overabundance in certain areas, which when there's an overabundance of animals in an area, that's not good. So I think that we should help the animal population of the natural population of grizzlies, rather than hunting them again. capturing them, transplanting them back into their native ranges of California, Colorado, Arizona. They haven't seen those bears there in 100 years, and I think that's the right thing to do. If you agree with me, spread the message. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And this is One Lazy Trucker praying for your safe travels. And have a good night and a blessed evening.